What if one of the most powerful and divisive ideas in all of human history wasn't actually real? That's the central argument in Richard J. Perry's book, Race and Racism. And in this explainer, we're going to break down how a concept that's basically fictional has had such devastatingly real consequences.
This right here is the paradox we're diving into. Racism is real, race is not. Now, I know that sounds completely impossible, doesn't it? But stick with me, because really understanding how this can be true is the key to everything.
Okay, so if race isn't real, then what in the world is it? To figure that out, we have to look at it from two different angles. First, we'll check out the hard science, the genetic evidence, and second, we're going to put on our historian hats and trace this idea all the way back to its surprising roots.
You know, the first hurdle we face is just the word itself. Perry points out this fascinating trap. Every single time we use the word race, even when we're trying to criticize the idea, we sort of reinforce it. We make it sound like a real, concrete, biological thing. The word itself props up the very idea we're trying to question.
I think the anthropologist C. Laurent Brace just says it perfectly. He says the concept isn't just useless, it's pernicious, which is such a great word. It means it causes harm in a really subtle, creeping, and gradual way. And it's that hidden damage that we're really here to understand.
All right, so let's start with the facts. Let's forget what we think we know for a minute and just look at the actual science. What does our own DNA have to say about race?
Take a good look at that number, 99.9%. That's how much of your genetic code is identical to every other human being on this planet. All the differences we see with our eyes, skin color, hair texture, eye shape, all of it exists in that tiny 0.1% sliver. Genetically, we're all remarkably the same.
This basically means the whole idea of sorting humanity into these neat, separate biological boxes, well, it's a total myth. In reality, human variation is gradual and overlapping. There's no genetic cliff where one race ends and another one begins. It all just blends together in a continuous flow.
And this chart illustrates maybe the most mind-blowing fact of all. That big bar on the left, that shows the genetic variation you'd find within any single group of people. Now look at that tiny bar on the right. That's the average variation between two different groups. There's way more genetic diversity inside any one population than there is between them. Just let that sink in for a second.
So, if the science is this clear, if our own genetics completely debunks the idea of race, then where on earth did this incredibly powerful concept come from?
The answer is that race isn't a fact of nature. It's a cultural artifact. The best way to think about it is like money or the lines on a map. It's not something you find out in the wild. It's an idea that we as people created and agreed to believe in. Race wasn't discovered in a lab. It was invented by society.
So if it was invented, let's get into the specifics. When did this happen and why? Because the origin story of race tells us everything we need to know about its true purpose.
And what's so shocking is how new this all is. As you can see on this timeline, before the 1500s, the idea of race as we know it barely even existed. It really takes off in the 18th and 19th centuries. And not coincidentally, that's right when scientific racism became a thing. This attempt to use bogus science to create and justify a social hierarchy. So this isn't some ancient wisdom, it's a modern invention.
And this invention was built on a very dangerous idea, biological determinism. That's the belief that your biology, your supposed race, determines everything about you. Your intelligence, your character, your potential. It's the claim that your worth as a person is fixed at birth, which is a powerful and destructive lie.
So why did an idea like this get so popular? Well, Perry's research makes it clear. It was useful. It was the perfect scientific-sounding excuse for deeply unequal systems like colonialism or slavery. It gave people a justification, right? It's not that we're being unfair, it's just that they're naturally inferior. The idea of race was and is a tool of power.
And we can still see the shadow of this invention all around us. During Hurricane Katrina, there was a really stark example. You had news outlets describing white survivors as finding supplies, while black survivors doing the exact same thing were described as looting. The idea that some groups are just inherently more criminal, that's a direct echo of biological determinism.
And all of this forces us to ask a really tough question. Even if we consciously reject these ideas, how have these centuries-old inventions shaped the way we see the world without us even realizing it?
So why does all this matter? Why is this distinction so important? Because knowing that race was invented isn't just an interesting historical fact. It changes everything about how we can fight the very real problem of racism today.
So let's just recap the big takeaways. Number 1, race is a biological fiction. There's no genetic basis for it. Number 2, it's a pretty recent cultural invention. And number 3, it was invented for a specific purpose, to create and defend social hierarchies and inequality. It's a political tool, not a biological reality.
And that leads us to our final and I think pretty provocative thought. If race is just a story that people invented, then that means we have the power to tell a different story. If this idea was invented, can it also be uninvented?